everyone. Welcome to TLB Snack Chats. We have Tabby and her special guest, little baby nugget. Oh, good. She's blending into the background.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Today we're going to be talking about feeding and the ins and outs, and really just Tabby and I being super vulnerable about our own experiences and struggles, our
Um,
wins, but also struggles.
right.
And the whole point of this is to hopefully give some validation to y'all that as nutrition professionals, like this is what we do for a living. We talk about food all day long. And even in our own day-to-day life, this stuff is really hard.
Yeah.
Um, and we're struggling as well at points. So that's
Yeah.
welcome to our vulnerability space.
Yes. No, seriously.
And literally we're like in it because Tabby's baby, she's just like multitasking. So yeah. Here we go. So we are gonna really just dive into the meat of this work. Oh, look at that food pun. We're gonna chat about the expectations versus reality of
Yeah.
actual family feeding.
Right.
So, Tabby, can you kind of just preface what would be some expectations that like society tells us we should be like?
Yeah, totally. I think with all of the media and with just how much information is out there, people really do think that the expectation or the ideal is for there to be like these calm, kind of euphoric dinners with your kids where everyone's eating balanced and nobody's tantruming and nobody has preferences or opinions that are strong and your kids are just compliant and happy. And that is truly just not the case. So, yeah, and I do think sometimes social media perpetuates that, right? Because you see these videos of, the music playing and these families eating together, and you just don't know what's happening in the background. If someone
Right,
was speaking, or if that parent actually maybe has like a poor relationship with that kid because they're forcing them to eat something, or right. There's
right.
so much that we lack seeing behind the scenes. So yeah, that's kind of, in my opinion, the expectation that can kind of go down.
Right. At like with my first kiddo, I have like, the plate with the dividers and like, oh, the really balanced meal where he's getting all the things and blah blah blah. And then he's like, I'm not eating that. Right. And you're like, oh gosh, what are
Okay.
we doing? So here's
Yes.
the reality. The reality is like selective eaters. I have a kiddo that's a strong
Yep.
preference kiddo. He likely has ARFID. Who knows, right? Like we're just in it, and that reality smacked me in the face
Yeah.
pretty soon into his childhood.
Yeah.
We're in time crunches. We are balancing so many things.
Right.
Uh, y'all know this if you've watched previous videos. I have a husband that travels for a living. So literally, it's like sometimes I'm getting off work, picking up kids, sweating in the process, just like trying to prep so many meals and what's the fastest thing. And you have this activity and this
Right.
appointment. And, right? So
Yep.
that's that budget. Like stuff's
Yep.
really expensive right now. I'm sorry, but like I am really focusing on some financial awareness. So,
Yeah.
and meal burnout. I'm
Yep.
done. I don't want to cook anymore. I'm
Mhm.
tired. You
Yep.
want breakfast for dinner? Sweet. I'm throwing that in the microwave and this is what you're getting.
Oh
Let's,
yeah.
right? So it just is really, really hard. And hopefully, what we can bring you today is some reality checking of like, yeah, this stuff is okay. We're all just trying to survive. So, what are some of your like personal, real life stories so that these our clients can relate?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I have a toddler and then obviously baby. And I do think with the toddler, it was exactly what you're saying, Tina. Like, okay, here is the expectation. I'm gonna serve this. And, I think sometimes there's the expectation of like, I'm gonna serve the brownie with the food, and my kid is just gonna pick at the brownie and then, eat the broccoli too. And then that doesn't happen, right? Because kids are kids. And I do think the more time has gone on, the more I've seen like this idyllic way that we kind of maybe think kids eat is just not true. So that's kind of with my toddler. And then this is, winding it back to the really early days. But with this baby, there's been a lot of feeding issues and just new topics. And so what I came in thinking was, okay, I've made milk before, I've breastfed before, this will be fine, and I think with her, it's been so different, and she's had troubles with the bottle and just different things. So y- in that, right, like in the very early stages of life, which is obviously not toddler or kid feeding, but it's still relevant because you're going
Yeah.
through this as a process. Um, it's all different. So they really throw you for a curveball. And now my older one is starting to develop some really strong preferences. And so I'm like, okay, how are we navigating this? Because conventional wisdom, or like, some of the stuff like um for that dietitians have written books about, like, it kind of doesn't work when you get into the meat of it with kids. And I think people need to know that that's okay, because in the same way that adults need individualized nutrition care, so do toddlers, and so do young kids, and
Yeah.
so do people who are making milk.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
all the things. Exactly. I have this like vivid memory of being on a call with you, Tabby, and your oldest being in the background, and he was licking applesauce off the floor. And you're like, the floor's clean. It's fine. Right. And I'm like, yes, this is real parenting right here. Like, whatever. He's screaming, but he's perfectly content licking the applesauce off the
Yeah.
floor. Let it be. All right.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love it. It was like a pure parenting moment where it's like, I'm flexible. I'm flexible. I don't know about you, but I'm flexible. So I think
Totally.
this like flows into like the like, how do we take care of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So society projects this like really rigid expectation that you need to be doing all these things really perfectly.
Right.
And then as a result, what ends up happening is us as parents are burning ourselves out because yeah, our kids are individualized humans and they
Yep.
have preferences and cravings in that moment and don't always want to be told what to do. Very rarely do they want to be told what to do.
Right.
And so if we're constantly pushing ourselves to like the brink of exhaustion,
Yeah.
then at that point, how much of a detriment to our self-care are we, engaging in? So
Mhm.
I think I bring up that example of the applesauce on the floor because you're like, I could be like, no, don't do that. It's dirty, blah, blah, blah. But then he's going to scream, he's going to be unhappy. And now you're in this thing where it's like, it's perfectly harmless. Like, who cares? It's,
Yes.
it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, yeah, there's bacteria on the floor, but there's bacteria on my hands and I wash.
Everywhere.
So, it's going to be a reality. So in my personal experience, there's so many times where I'm just like, this is not in my control. And this
Yeah.
is one meal, one snack, one moment. When I zoom out, I
Yes.
recognize these kids are really taken care of and they are getting in food and balance in their own little versions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I think to kind of comment on that too. I completely agree. Like, nutrition is a long game, and nutrition that is supportive for the individual well-being of the kid and the person is so much of a long game. And so if you're starting your feeding journey with a power struggle, it is going to be rough, as you continue, rather than like trusting the process. And I don't want to invalidate how hard it is. Like, I definitely understand that. I also have a spouse who travels a lot, and it's continuing to kind of ramp up to be more and more. And there are nights where I feel like, oh man, did I get him what he needed? And then I remember, no, this is a long game. It's fine. What I did is enough. There's space for me to grow in this, but it doesn't need to be this thing that I feel that needs to have, a perfect, picture perfect moment every single time that he's eating a food, because that is just not how it goes. And I honestly just think that that backfires, like we're saying, because just as much as the kid, has values and needs, so do we. And so that also needs to be considered in the process. And you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons of like this death grip maybe that you have on the food that they're eating, which in and of itself is kind of problematic and can be observed, right? But also how it's creating your life to be. Like, are you stressed every night at dinner time because of the foods that you're afraid to offer and all these kinds of things? So, again, all valid concerns, things that everybody has to work through in their own time. But I do think sometimes it's just really important to value the self-care of the parent with the kid. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that flows us into like the next section, which is like common challenges that
yeah.
parents face. I feel like I want to be real with y'all and be like, hey, this is what's happening behind the curtain versus this like very pretty outward
Mhm.
picture. So we're just going to touch on a few, but like even for me personally, one of the challenges that I have faced is picky eating, selective eating, and challenging and ever changing food preferences. Um, when my son was born, I was a big believer and advocate of the division of responsibilities. And I do think that that structure is really important and helpful to utilize for the most part.
Yeah.
My daughter, uh, my son is 6, my daughter's 3. She is not a strong preference eating. She likely is not going to have ARFID or sensory struggles or whatever because she's just a pretty flexible eater. But she mirrors my older son. And so if he doesn't want it, she doesn't want it. But when he's not around, she's like, yeah, I'll eat it. Right. So it just is one of those things that is really challenging. And it was really hard to adapt where if I did the division of responsibilities with him, then he just wouldn't eat, or it would create such a
Yep.
big anxiety pull that he would stress himself out so much that he would
Yeah.
actually throw up from anxiety. Versus my daughter, if the division of responsibility, this is what's served, this is what we're having. Okay, fine. After some push, like, I don't want it, blah, 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 she'll eat it. Right. So it is a stark reality check of like, this isn't going to work for every kid
Yeah.
because some kids they just don't fit that mold.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask a question for you with that? Okay. So how did you navigate? I mean, this kind of goes into the next section we're going to talk about. So if I'm jumping ahead, let me know. But I feel like this goes into reframing success. So I'm curious to hear, how did you do that for your own personal experience? Like being a dietitian, also a parent, and having a selective eater. Like, how did you move forward with that and kind of reframe success there?
Yeah, I do think the benefit of being a dietitian is I was able to recognize what was happening very early on. And so I was able to get him into supportive services very early. So he started occupational therapy treatment at like right at 3 years old. And now he's almost 7. It's like he's a different child.
Mhm.
He does have flexible eating within his own parameters. We've
Right.
done a pizza exposure for the last 2+ years. And he now has just gotten to the point where he can eat any pizza at any point, at any restaurant with sauce, all the things. And because that happened, now he'll do pasta with sauce, right? So really it was a sauce thing. But
Okay.
that's 2 years. So really it was, oh, I can recognize this early on. I can start early interventions versus, as we know, some of the clients that are coming in with their 6, 7, 8 year old being
Yeah.
like, now there's growth delays
Right.
and they eat
Right.
5 things and all that stuff,
Yeah.
where the kids like really in the trenches, the family are in the trenches, and it just creates a lot of anxiety and stress. So the success there was early intervention, but
Yeah.
doesn't
Totally.
mean it's not possible,
Yes.
to intervene later. I think
Right.
any intervention at any point is helpful.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had clients that were farther along in the journey, even older than 7 or 8, and were able to expand their palettes significantly
Yeah.
with work. So, and I do feel like kind of a tidbit there that I want to say is, and this I want to say this lightly because I do think some people end up feeling like they need to grip to this and it creates a perfect environment, which is not true. But the more foods that you introduce in that time frame of like 6 months to a year or whenever they're appropriate to start eating, the more foods you have to work with that you're going down from. If you're kind of handling a selective eater, you've got a lot of foods. And that this is not to say that at like age 2 or 3, they don't go through a completely
Totally.
additional like where it's like, okay, cool, we had 100 foods and now there's 10.
And
But I
yeah.
do still think it's something that's worth paying attention to in that first kind of year and a half is like really introducing a lot of foods so that you're not necessarily starting from a point of introducing less and then kind of going from there. And kids find their own way either way. So I just think it's worth noting.
Yeah, I mean, my older son, he ate everything up
Yep.
until about 18 months, 2 years old. Then
Yes.
I was like, oh, something's happening, right?
Yep.
So, and then it's a hard balance because at 2, they're like demon children, right? And you're like, oh my gosh. And then 3, you're like, ah, I'm so scared of you, right? So all of that can come into play with the food. And so there's going to be a lot more videos around selective eaters and stuff like that, the warning signs, what to look out for. So we're just kind of grazing the surface here.
Right.
For the sake of time, this is going to be a part 1 to a part 2. So you'll have to tune back in to kind of get a lot of the other aspects of this. But kind of coming into other struggle areas or challenges that we face as parents is the refusal and tantrums with younger kiddos. Really, it's like, yeah, 2 to 3 to 4, they're experiencing so much emotional
Yep.
development. And then we're coming in and basically telling them what to do. They don't want to be told what to do. They're not compliant, right? And so I think really the challenge in feeding these individuals is that how much bandwidth do I have for an
Yeah.
explosive tantrum and refusal to eat? Like, how far am I going to push it? Right. If you don't have a selective eater, because I wouldn't push it with that because they
Right.
like they're not going to eat anything.
Right.
But for just a kind of flexible eater, yeah, I mean, it's okay to be like, I'm not willing to do the tantrum right now. And so I'm just gonna make what works just to get them to eat and to support my own mental health, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yes, totally agree. And I've definitely do that very often when my bandwidth is low. And
Yeah.
it's a great thing, and it's also a great thing to have no shame about that,
No
because it is
shame.
a long game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about schedules and perfect meals,
Let me
the competing schedules?
oh yes, totally.
Abby lost her spot. No,
I did lose my spot. I'm sorry.
she's not multitasking her.
No, right. Seriously. Okay, so competing schedules, so the family rarely eats together. This is challenging because, right, we have this like ideal of like, okay, we know that like family meals together are what is ideal and most helpful for the family unit. And there are other things that come up in life. There could be sports, there can be a spouse that travels, there can be a need for extra childcare that goes into the dinner window or whatever. There can be so many things that come up depending on access, life situation, and all of that. And I do think that's just a really challenging thing. I'm just kind of naming that. Like there are really hard pieces to that. And I think being in the younger stage of kids right now, having like an almost 2 year old and a 3 month old, I do feel like that is kind of circling back now where I'm like, okay, it's time for his dinner, but she also wants to eat. She wants to nap. How do I navigate getting her to sleep while he needs to eat? This is new things. And so, yeah, I just kind of want to put out there that I don't ever think that there's an ideal. And every stage you enter with kids, I do think you just kind of have to evaluate like what is accessible to me right now so that you don't go in a shame spiral of what is ideal versus what is, actually helpful for you and your family. So that's my thought on that. Any thoughts, Tina, there?
No, I love it. It's just the reality, you know? It flows us into the kind of next part where we're kind of combining 3 aspects, which it's like this pressure to have the perfect meal, guilt when you're not having the perfect meal and you're repeating the same meals, and then the load of deciding the meals. And I just want to validate that, like, it's exhausting. I don't want to pick what
No,
we're all going to eat forever, right?
no.
Ugh, that is
We're-
interesting, right? So we're just kind of naming this as like, yes, this is a common struggle. Like there
Yeah.
is no such thing as the perfect meal. It's okay to be repetitive. I think I have 5 meals that are our circle go-tos,
Yep.
and I'm totally okay with that. Maybe
Yeah.
not in the beginning, but I am now. And it is exhausting to be the alpha parent and always deciding the meals. Tabby and I, next video, are going to talk about some strategies around that and how to support y'all. So, really, to recap this part one, it's hard, y'all. It is hard, and we are in it with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think just community and recognition. I don't know if it's going to get better because Tabby and I are still in the thick of it. Anybody that has older kids, tell us. But at this point, we're in the thick of it and we're just
Yeah.
recognizing this is just it. This is our reality and it's okay.
Yes, yes, truly it is okay. And I think it's so important for people to even see that dietitians, right, professionals are totally still figuring this out. So
Yep. Yep.
it's hard.
We'll see you next time. Join us for part 2. Thanks.